Hello, this is Sarah Bry, and I'm here with Jennifer Stratt and Becky Trapnell. Say hello, ladies.
Hello.
And Becky is here today to talk about the 9 characteristics of the effective literacy classroom. When she's done presenting today, there will be a link on your school news that will take you to a Google form to fill out with your grade level team.
You've seen this screen before, haven't you? This is the Grand Forks Public School mission statement, providing an environment of educational excellence that engages all learners to develop their maximum potential for community and global success. It's not an easy task to engage all students in written and spoken dialogue about relevant content. Here are your kiddos, right? They come with all different backgrounds, different experiences, different motivations, different potentials. And it's our job to maximize the time that we have with them. You saw this a long time ago when we were rolling out the Writers' Workshop. What is it that allows for differentiated instruction, which provides supportive context that allows teachers to meet the literacy needs of all their students? It's that workshop approach. We use the workshop approach because it matches our district mission statement. When we look at our MTSS system, the whole system of support for children, we see that first line of defense for preventing reading difficulties. That's tier 1. It's not just core instruction that we provide, it's differentiated core instruction. So a couple years ago, we rolled out the Writers' Workshop explicitly and systematically in every K-5 classroom in our schools. We looked at the contents of the Writers' Workshop, which was the Common Core writing standards, and the container or the structure that is used in every classroom. Just like the Writers' Workshop, we now are going to be moving into the Readers' Workshop. Again, it's going to parallel what we know from Writers' Workshop. The contents of Readers' Workshop are the Common Core reading standards, and the container is the gradual release that we already have been using under our balanced literacy approach that in our last adoption. So as we move forward, rolling out reading, you're going to see things that are familiar to you. We are going to work to be very explicit and systematic so that all of us are coming from the same common language and the same common understandings around Readers' Workshop. This topic is the characteristics of effective literacy classrooms, and we're looking at the research of Ellington and Cunningham. It is the research that undergirds Gretchen Owocki's Common Core reading book. Okay, so we're now looking at effective literacy classrooms that would include both the Writers' Workshop and the Readers' Workshop. So Ellington has identified 9 characteristics of effective literacy workshop. The first one is balance, and it's balance in instruction. So whatever literacy concept we're teaching, we teach it both in reading and writing. So last year, when you were teaching Standard 1, opinion writing, this is the writing standards, Standard 2, informational writing, and Standard 3, narrative text type, these text types. We now know that this is not just going to be taught in the Writers' Workshop. These text types are going to be taught both in reading and writing. So here's an example of the, Gretchen called them, I feel like we're on a first name basis. Gretchen called them story maps. And she said in Writers' Workshop that students could use these to plan their writing of whatever text type. And this one obviously is opinion. But what we know now is that what students are doing in writing, they're first going to be doing in reading. So students can be using these organizers in reading to identify the elements of the discourse of opinion writing as they find them when they're reading. Just so you remember, all of these are on the Elementary Literacy Hub. Okay, so when we talk about this balance of what we teach in reading, we're also going to be teaching in writing. Lester Lamanick takes the balance a bit further. He says it's not only balance, but it's sequence that matters. And he says that the oral understanding, it all starts with the ear. The oral understanding must be in place before the student can understand or comprehend through the eye, which is reading. And last to develop is the ability to create it through writing and presentation. So think of that in terms of, take the text type opinion writing. When students hear opinion pieces read to them and reflected upon by their teacher first, then they are better able to read and understand opinion pieces on their own. When students have experience reading and understanding opinion pieces, they're better able to produce in writing their own opinion pieces. This is the natural progression, instructional progression that ensures success at every age, at every developmental level. The second characteristic of highly effective literacy instruction has to do with volume reading and volume writing. This is not a new topic to us. Ellington says when more effective elementary classrooms are compared with less effective classrooms, a key distinguishing feature is that students in high achievement classrooms read more. Ellington's been around my whole career, and he said it still remains disturbingly little time reading at school. And he's talking about continuous text reading. He's not talking about reading isolated skills or strategies or filling in words. He's talking about in a book, continuous text reading and writing. He says, this is 2012, still 10 to 12 minutes per day was the average. Now, if you're in a kindergarten classroom, I'd be happy with that. But he's talking about an average up through 5th grade at least. Gretchen Owocki, that's her picture right there, really hit home with me when she said that the word study activities, the literature response, we know those are really important components in reading in the reader's workshop, but they should consume considerably less time during the reading block than the actual reading, that continuous text reading. The last time that I saw this chart in a presentation was from Donalyn Miller when she was talking about the 40-book challenge, which is an excellent volume reading motivator. She was talking about, some of your kids in your classroom, they can read 20 minutes like a breeze. It's not amazing that they rank pretty high when they're assessed. This chart says at about a 90 percentile rank. She says if you think about that 21 minutes that they read and the words, the number of words that they're reading over the course of a year, it would be about 1.8 million. Now, her thing is, can we increase that volume reading? And she's saying, can we increase it just 10 minutes? 10 minutes per day through the year. So if this child at 90th percentile reads 1.8 million, increase it 10 minutes per day, you're now at 2.6 million, which is a 47, it's almost a 50% increase in word exposure. Let's go down to your 50th percentile kids. It says they read about 4.5 minutes of continuous, they can sustain continuous text, okay? Or they're given that amount of time in the classroom. They in a year will read about 280,000 words per year. Increase, they're reading 10 minutes a day, you're up now to around 900,000, excuse me, 900,000. That's a 217% increase in word exposure. So to those kids that, they can't even sustain a minute of continuous text, they're the kids around the 20th percentile. They're only reading about 21,000 words a year. But if you work to increase their reading time just 10 minutes, you'd be going to 321,000 words per minute. That's a 1,400% increase in word exposure. This business about volume reading is not a little thing. We know the more students read, the better they become at reading. You might want to pause here and have some discussion in your team. So when we look at volume reading, Owocki is also saying it's volume writing that is equally important. And we know that kids learn to write in Writer's Workshop, in process writing, okay? And every child in K-5 should have that block in their literacy time where they're getting process writing or the Writer's Workshop. But we also know that kids have to write to learn, and that's the importance of Common Core's writing across the curriculum. As we increase their capacity, students' capacity to read and write, they will better be able to use reading and writing as tools for learning as they move into content area reading. So, you know, the point here is do not let skill practice consume your literacy block. You know, we used to have the old home programs where kids would practice reading at home, and we thought, oh, this is a great way to cement their skills and strategies and whatnot. But it certainly didn't prove that all kids were getting their volume reading in. And so, you know, we know that this volume in reading and writing needs to be throughout their day, in their literacy block, in their content area blocks. Okay. The next characteristic of highly effective literacy classrooms is integration, where kids have the experiences of science and social studies content, but in their reading, they are also reading about that content. And if this is done in guided small group instruction, they could even be writing responses to their reading and getting the whole reading, writing, speaking, listening integration. So this integration, we know we've struggled forever with time in the district. So we know integration is a way to use time effectively, but it also helps our students build capacity to use reading and writing as tools for learning. The next characteristic is that the activities, the reading, the writing, the communicating activities in a classroom need to be meaningful. They need to be real and relevant. You know, we need to keep in mind that different children come with different funds of knowledge into our classroom, and what is meaningful to one child or one classroom or one community might be different from another. Kids love to get the response, you know, if they share their literature responses on a blog and get feedback from other people. You know, developmentally young children would still see it meaningful to write a letter to Santa Claus convincing him that they've been good and should have presents, where another child may be more interested in the visual literacy and be looking at persuasion through advertisement. So offering and honoring kids' interests and backgrounds of what provides meaning for them is really important. Okay. So rather than, you know, we used to just teach a skill or a strategy so that children would learn to demonstrate competency with it. Today we teach so that students can actually use that skill or strategy to support some meaningful, relevant, real activity. This characteristic is explicit instruction. And you know, forever we've had explicit instruction in whole group settings. But I love how Gretchen says, adds support is provided as children use the skills in reading and writing. I don't know a greater master in the field today than Jan Richardson in her guided reading setting, where the teacher scaffolds that support in a small group and individually when kids are in the act of real reading and real writing. Some wonderful, wonderful work is going on in terms of increasing the explicitness of our instruction in the schools. When we were introducing the Writers' Workshop, we talked about the importance of that explicit instruction and how it starts in the whole group. Let's say, for example, I'm doing a whole group focus on retelling and I want to teach the structure of beginning and middle and end to kids. I would probably start it in whole group as a read aloud, maybe a couple levels above the kids. But they would have that focus on beginning, middle, and end in whole group. I would then take that same focus into small group where they'd be reading text at their instructional level, but we'd still be talking about retelling, beginning, middle, and end. Partner work would continue with that same retelling of beginning, middle, and end, turn and talk. And then lastly, teachers in the independent level would be checking for transfer if that child can retell beginning, middle, and end. So our focus, our explicit instruction starts in whole group, but it is very intentional and consistent as it moves through that gradual release. And so what it means for teachers is basically all we do is teach, teach, and reteach at every setting. Okay, so we noticed that when Jan Richardson talks about her framework for supporting every developmental stage, every reader, she starts with assessment. In the old days, we used to teach and then we assessed. Today, we assess first and then we teach. And that's because we know that the children's actual demonstration of knowledge should inform the specifics around our Common Core instruction. The next characteristic is differentiation. That's very familiar. We've talked about when you teach in whole group, small group, and individual, and how formative assessment is going to help you to know who needs what and how to flexibly group for that. Materials need to be varied. And always, as you use an adoption or a set of materials that comes in, you have to know that the teacher still remains the decision maker. What standards are kids going to need more time with because they're more essential for continued learning, and how to make sure that kids are getting exactly what they need, okay? So don't be afraid to retain that decision making, no matter what series comes in. And the last, getting to the last characteristics, Marzano has already taught us how our goal is that every day we want a set of rich reading and writing experiences so that our kids have high engagement. We know that true engagement takes into account student backgrounds and interests, their choice and their agency, and that the activity that we have before them has to be meaningful. It has to be important and relevant. That students need to have access at their fingertips, materials that are going to be at their independent level and their instructional level, so that their volume reading is going to help to further their reading development. And then lastly is expectations that need to be high and positive for all students. We know the self-fulfilling prophecy works. And so sometimes when, teachers are reflecting on the students in our classroom, it's not uncommon to hear, all of my students are on a grade level except these two, and then here's my LD and here's my ELL. And we want to really remember that, for all students, the reading development, the writing development is the same. It is different. The rate of growth is different for different populations. And so we want to make sure that we retain these high expectations and just change the amount of scaffolding and support that we need. to make sure that students reach that. So it's been great to review these characteristics of effective literacy classrooms with you today. I'm sure a number of them, maybe all of them, are familiar to you. But what we really want to be thinking about today as we discuss these characteristics is, in our practice, how proficient, how obvious are these characteristics for the students in my classroom? Because we know the implications of the Common Core instruction is need to build students that really can read with increased proficiency, and they can handle text that has increased complexity with increased independence. So at this time, I'd like you to take some time to reflect on these characteristics of effective literacy instruction and their implications for Common Core instruction. You know, which areas are already a strength for you? Which are areas for you to grow individually, as a team, or even as a school? Thank you.
And as soon as you are finished discussing with your team, don't forget to head on over to your school news and fill out the Google form. Thank you.